Hi! If you are watching my channel for the first time, my name is Michael and I am a full-time content creator. Now, my journey to become a full-time content creator hasn't exactly been a smooth one. And one of the big reasons for that is because of the overwhelming amount of stuff that I had to do research on, meaning the things that I would use or need to actually create some content. So I decided this year to create a recommendations list. To preface this, I am not saying that you need all of these. As a matter of fact, I recommend that you always start with what you have. So if you are watching this and you are new to the content creation space, I hope that this video will help you decide which products you actually need and maybe even don't need to help you out in your new venture. So to kick things off, let's start with the camera. In almost every content creation space, you're most likely going to need a camera, unless you just want to start a podcast, which you probably don't need a camera, although some people do. But I've always recommended that you buy used unless you know exactly how to use a camera, what you want, what's the type of features that you're looking for. But if you're just starting out, buy something that's used and in good condition, and it almost doesn't matter what brand, because most of these brands are basically, they're similar to each other. Just some do certain things a little bit better than others. So I'm gonna keep this list as simple as possible without diving too much into the technical details. And I'll start this list off with my most recommended simple camera to start off with, and that would be the Canon G7X. This camera is very simple and small and very easy to use. It has the flip out screen if you like vlogging, easy to use controls. The main problem with this one is that it's a little bit expensive, but I do recommend getting the Mark II or even the Mark I. You can find them fairly reasonably priced in the used market. The Mark III, which is the latest version of it, I wouldn't really recommend because of all the autofocusing issues. So I think the Mark II is the sweet spot. So aside from the price being the downside, the only other downside I would say is the battery life, because it's not really that good. And I guess it's something that you can expect from a compact camera. But the good news is you can buy a bunch of third-party batteries on Amazon for rather cheap. Now, if you want something that's a little bit more robust in terms of features or maybe expandability or attachments and accessories, I would recommend the Sony a6000 series. So there's actually a bunch of them. There's an a6000, an a6300, a6500, a6600, a6700, I think, a6800. Point is, there's a lot of them. The a6000 is probably the one that I would recommend to beginners because you can find them in the used market like fairly easily, and they're going to be priced reasonably well. And the great thing about this camera is that it shoots video, it shoots great photos. You can change the lens. There's so many different options, and you can also attach a microphone. The downside with the a6000 is that it does not have the flip out screen unless you opt for the newer a6500, I think. That's the flip out screen. And also the battery kind of sucks. Again, you can purchase third-party batteries on Amazon for rather cheap. I personally have the a6300, and the main difference between the a6000 and a6300 is that it can capture 4K video. The a6000 doesn't. If you're able to push your budget a little bit further, I would recommend the new Sony a7C, which is what I'm using right now to film this. Main reason I recommend it is because it actually has the flip out screen, and it also benefits from a full frame sensor, which is basically what my a7 III has, a camera that looks like an a6000, but with the features of the a7 III. It has a flip out screen, good battery, and a full frame sensor. It's my favorite camera to date. So let's pretend you've decided on the camera that you want, and you plan to create video content such as this. You are most likely going to need a microphone. In this case, I have two microphones that I would recommend. One is the Video Micro Shotgun microphone by Rode. The great thing about this microphone is that it doesn't even need a battery, and it's very compact and it picks up sound really, really well. So this is perfect for a vlogging setup, and it's very small and you don't have to worry about charging it or anything like that. The disadvantage of the shotgun microphone is that at a certain distance, the sound obviously becomes harder to pick up. The other microphone I would recommend, which is what I'm using right now, and that is the Rode Wireless Go microphone. What it is basically two little devices that are connected wirelessly, and one is on the camera itself, and the other one is in my pocket right now. And I have a little lapel mic so that it can pick up my voice, even if I'm far away from the camera, which is great. The only disadvantage of the Wireless Go is that it's a little bit more expensive, and obviously you have to worry about charging it. The Video Micro is obviously cheaper, which for a lot of beginners is actually more than enough. I still use that microphone to this day. Okay, so now we have something to capture your images or your video and also your sound. The next thing that you're gonna need is something to edit them. Now we can go the simple route and just say edit them using your phone, which is actually reasonable. Nowadays, there's a lot of apps out there that you can use to edit video. Back in the day, I would have to use a full-on desktop. But now, thanks to technology, it's not really that hard anymore. But let's pretend you actually need something that's a little bit more than just your phone. So for me personally, I use Apple products to edit my content. And it's really just personal preference. And also I have a solid workflow around the Apple ecosystem already. Windows products also work just as well. But here's something to consider. Apple just released their new MacBook Air with the M1 chip. And if you've heard or read or watched any of the reviews, it's kind of crazy. So the new MacBook Air has the potential to be a very powerful editing machine at a friendlier Apple entry-level price. As a matter of fact, I have a friend who just did a review on the new MacBook Air with the M1 chip, and she could not stop raving about it. I'll leave the link to her review down in the description below so you can check it out. So let's say you don't want a MacBook, you want to edit using a tablet. Now, my recommendation would be either the older iPad Pro or the new iPad Air, which is also cheaper than the iPad Pro with basically the same performance. But anyway, the iPad Pro or Air, or even just a regular iPad, is a very capable machine if you're editing photos or even some video. For videos, you can also use the built-in iMovie. In terms of editing photos, you can use Lightroom, the free version one, or there's VSCO or Snapseed, which is actually another very capable editing software. As I mentioned, I use the iPad Pro myself, and the one accessory that I highly, highly recommend, and I know it's a little expensive, but I highly recommend it if you type a lot of emails and you just do a lot of typing, is getting the Magic Keyboard. This thing is almost like a prerequisite for me if I were to use my iPad. It just changed everything for me. The downside of the Magic Keyboard is that it's obviously expensive. If you don't want to use the Magic Keyboard, you can look at Logitech's offering, such as the Folio Touch. Now, the Folio Touch pretty much does the same thing as a Magic Keyboard and is about half the price. The only disadvantage of the Folio Touch is that you would have to have a wider and more stable surface for you to actually lay it out and use it as a keyboard. So that means you also can't put it on your lap and type. I mean, it's going to be a real struggle unless you have a really big lap. The one thing that it can do that the Magic Keyboard can't is that it can fully open for you to use your iPad in tablet form. Okay, so now we are on to more of the camera accessories, and I have two recommendations for you. The first one would be the Switch Pod, and what it is basically a tripod where you mount your camera on top, and you can use it when you're vlogging or just when you're carrying your camera around. It's just easier to film using this because it gives you that extra reach when you're trying to film yourself, and it just deploys very, very easily if you need a tripod. And also you can get an additional accessory so you can use it with your phone. The only disadvantage that I can think of for this product is that it's a little bit more pricey than your regular tabletop tripod, and you are pretty much limited to this height. The other one that I would recommend is the Smooth X made by Zhiyun. I think I said that name right. So I have kids, and one of the things that I look for in a device is the ease of use. Like, just the convenience of capturing that video or that photo and then just, easy to share. And that's the great thing about the phones nowadays. You might be on that side of the content creator space where you capture things using your camera phone. This would be a great tool. It has a built-in stabilizer. You can adjust the height or the length of the handle. You have access to instant controls here on the handle itself. That means you can change the setting without having to go to the clunky menu system. Just to give you an example of a real world use on how I use this device, I basically just mount my phone on the stabilizer and I run around with my kids. And the great thing is that I also have Google Photos installed on my phone. So everything, every video, every photo of them goes directly, to the cloud and it's backed up. It's also very great for people who like to vlog because you can extend this very, very far. It's easier to film yourself and even maybe take selfies. As a bonus, I also like using this when I'm on a Zoom call, which is pretty cool. And probably the greatest thing about all of this is that it's actually affordable. We're gonna jump a little bit into a different category right now, and we're gonna talk about podcasting. Podcasting has become very, very popular in this year because everyone is at home. And it's easy to actually create content for podcasts. The obvious thing that you're gonna need is a microphone. But before we go there, I actually want to say that you can record your podcast using just your phone. And there's an app out there called Anchor that is free. You can use it to actually create your podcast. Check it out. But if you want a little bit more, a serious setup, then obviously you're going to need a microphone. So I bought a microphone kit on Amazon by Pseudotech. It basically comes with the boom arm, the microphone itself, basically everything that I would need for a nicer microphone setup at home. It sounds great. I honestly think these very affordable microphones are good to start with. Sound is very subjective, and I think after a while, that's when you really start to understand what type of sound that you want. In my own opinion, it's really hard to go wrong with any Rode product. One of the products that I use is the NT USB Mini, and it honestly doesn't get any simpler than this when it comes to microphones. I can take my laptop and plug in the microphone via USB, plug in the headphones in the built-in 3.5mm audio jack, and I can listen to my audio as I record. And it has a volume control here so I can monitor my voice. It's just great. It's a simple device. High quality. It picks up sound really, really well. So I highly recommend this. You can actually use this microphone mounted on a boom arm, and it doesn't have to be a Rode specific product. You can just get the same one that you got from Amazon, the generic boom arm, and it'll work just as fine. The disadvantage of the Rode is that it's a little bit more expensive, but I can vouch for them and say that their products are amazing. It's just a great microphone overall. This one you can take almost anywhere with you, which I think is a pretty cool feature. All right, so now we get to a category that I never really considered when I started out, and that is storage. Because obviously you've created all this, these digital assets, but you need a place to store them. The one that I decided on is the very popular portable SanDisk SSD, and I'm extremely happy with it. I can plug it into my iPad Pro or my MacBook if I wanted to. It is IP55 rated, which means it is dust resistant. It is also shock and vibration resistant. It can withstand up to maybe a light drizzle, I would say, which is nice. That means you can take this around with you and not worry too much. If you are more of the Indiana Jones type of content creator, then you might want to consider a portable storage device by CalDigit. They have their own version of a portable SSD, which is called the Tough Nano. Now, the Tough Nano has a higher IPX rating at IP67, which means it is completely dust resistant, even more resistant for any water. As a matter of fact, you can drop this in up to a meter deep of water for 30 minutes. Now, I'm not going to suggest you go swimming with it because that's just not recommended, but it's nice to know this portable storage device can actually take a beating. The only downside of the Tough Nano compared to the SanDisk SSD is that it is significantly more expensive. All right, we've gotten to the final part of this video, which is an optional accessory that I would recommend for you as a content creator. This would be a dock and also a hub. The dock that I use is this one made by CalDigit. It's called the USB-C Pro dock that I use with my MacBook Pro. It has a Thunderbolt port, an SD card slot, a 3.5mm audio jack, USB-C and 3 USB-A ports, as well as 2 display ports and an Ethernet port. This is a little pricey, but the build quality and performance is solid from a very reputable brand. I think that, added with the convenience of the additional ports, makes it a worthwhile investment. But if you just want something that's more portable and a lot more affordable, you can also check out Mokin's USB-C hub. This is only $15 on Amazon at the time of this video. This basically gives you 2 USB-A ports, an SD and mini SD card slot, and an HDMI port. This actually has been the companion for my iPad Pro for a good maybe 2 years now. So those are my recommended tools for all you aspiring content creators out there. Now again, I have to stress, you don't need to buy these items specifically. These are just what I would recommend because I actually use them. But as always, I recommend starting with what you have. Even if you just have a phone to record your videos, your audios, or even capture images, start with that one. Add things little by little as you evolve and grow and understand more of what you like. One of the biggest pitfalls I think that content creators experience is that sometimes they just get too excited and dive right in and just buy a whole lot of stuff that they realize they don't really need. So I just want to say thank you for watching this holiday gift guide, Content Creators Edition. I hope I've given you some ideas to help you out on this journey of yours. Before I let you go, don't forget to check out our podcast, which is going to be linked in the description below. We basically talk about this very topic right here, which is content creation. I think you're gonna like it. And everything else that I've shared and discussed in this video is going to be linked in the description below. Yada, yada, yada. Now skedaddle and go create something awesome. Thanks. Windows products work really well as well. Windows products also work just as well.